Welcome to the Soulful Sustainable Living podcast with Haley and Makayla, your go-to holistic healing and conscious living hacks. Ready? I'm excited. Welcome, friends. Welcome to our third episode of our Soulful Sustainable Living podcast with Haley and Makayla. This is a really special episode today because it is our birthday episode. And we are both Libras in spirit and wanted to do this episode in honor of us, selfishly, to share things that are important to us, riff a little bit about why this podcast is so important to us, and quite frankly, we're just going to see what comes up.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah. I just really love that we're taking the time and space to do this. I don't know where we came up with the idea to do a birthday episode, but just Makayla and I think, are 6 days apart. And we're both turning 27 here in just a few weeks. So there's a lot going on. We were just kind of chatting before we started recording, and so much is coming up for us individually, professionally, in our businesses, in our communities, in our lives. And I think it's just so much change is happening, and just wanted to take some time to slow down, introduce ourselves a little bit more, talk a little bit more about who we are, and how we connected, why are we still remaining connected, and how are we friends, and what are our values, and how can we use platforms like this podcast to inspire positive change for other people. So we'll see what comes up. We don't really have a plan, which is unlike us, but we're just kind of seeing what happens here. And
I think the best things come without a plan.
100%.
So I want to circle back to just coming up on this 27th year for both of us. Can you just speak to what it feels like going into your later 20s? And we're closer to 30 than we are 20. And those that are listening that are over that 30-year-old threshold, I know you're laughing. And the ones that are under 25, I bet you're thinking that 27 feels far away, because that's how I felt when I was just a little bit younger. And it's a funny thing. I'm so proud of myself looking back because of the way that I fostered my earlier 20s and the value that I held for my physical health and the time I took to get on top of my mental health and my emotional health and connect to my spirituality. I feel so much more set up than some of my peers in that regard. And yet looking ahead, it's like there's so much to do. So it's that balance of honoring where you've come from, how much you've accomplished. And I think for me, it's what's coming next.
100%. Yeah. I feel like, entering into your true late 20s feels a little bit different. It feels scarier. I think all of the decisions that I'm making feel a little bit more time constrained, and just in general, is this kind of in alignment with who I want to be now, where I want to go? And it is a little bit more of a serious time for me. I'm feeling a little bit more weight on my shoulders, but not in a way of external pressure or things that you might have felt when you're a little younger. More of almost the opposite for me, where it feels internally, am I living up to who I want to be? And that comes with a whole different set of things to process through. But I think in general, it's just this kind of, for me, I feel how can I soften into this next season? And we're just talking, but trust and faith and having this clear vision and taking your aligned action, and you're doing all those things, but just staying on that path and knowing that you will be kind of diverted around through life, and surrendering to that whole process. I think so much of what I've been doing in my early 20s, and just even before, I started working when I was 14. So I've always had kind of a professional vision for so long. And so I think what I'm hearing now is just still hold that vision, still take that aligned action, but just know that you can also soften, and you can also receive and just like feel okay almost without having this like high anxiety. For me has been my past of like everything has to be high performance and
perfection and all of people pleasing and learning how to say no, I think is something I've gathered in the last few years. So that one hits home. And what I'm hearing too is a little more self-acceptance and maybe it is self-trust that everything is going to work out. And that comes with having a vision for your future. I know something that we're both extremely passionate about is looking at our like 5, 10, 15, 20-year future. And the decisions that we're making now heavily impact what that life will look like. And it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we're still in that age. Society says that when you're young and when you're in your 20s, basically you get a permission slip. If you'd like it, you can have it to piss away your life. That's the way that I see it. If you want to piss away your life in your 20s, it's socially acceptable to start getting on track right around now or coming up on 30. People start to be like, oh, I should be more serious with my finances. I should really look at my time and be a better steward of my time. And oh, I should start to take care of my body. And I'm celebrating in so much gratitude just how far I've come in straightening my priorities in those boxes, in those areas of life, and having a deeper level of self-acceptance allows you to, I think, have a little more fun and have a little more play. And you describe it as softness, and I think of it more of like not taking yourself so seriously.
Yes. It's like there's like a really like a huge duality there for me. It's like the pressure feels larger because it's more internal for me. And yeah, like how is joy? Like how can we get to joy
quicker
with everything
right now?
Like I don't know, just finding and seeking pleasure in things and choosing the route that gives you the most amount of pleasure just feels like it's going to have the highest returns. And that is something that I think I haven't necessarily heard in our society. Definitely not something that I think young professionals are taught. And so, but definitely is a notion that I think that I'm taking in now, going into these later seasons of my 20s. And yeah, just like finding that peace within it and balance too.
I want to know. That's a big thing for me too. I spent a lot of time doing a lot of release work and uncovering the demons and going dark into the shadow side of my soul to be able to move in a way that is aligned with desire and move in a way that isn't like self-perpetuated pain, and also recreating a relationship between hard work and pleasure, knowing that you can do things that are good for yourself, but they don't have to feel bad. And you can come from a place of enjoyment and ease, even if it's something that takes more time or commitment or devotion or discipline. You get to enjoy those things if you want to. I think of a more recent example. I realized my relationship with exercise has changed dramatically. My late adolescence, early adulthood, there's many chapters there, but I started using physical fitness as a crutch to curb, stress and other maybe mental limiting factors I had in my life. And some would say that's an extremely healthy way to cope with stress. And I would agree. I think there are
worse things to do.
There are worse things to do, and I was doing them. There are worse things to do, and I was doing them. And so in order to stop doing some of the poor choices when it comes with coping with stress, lots of substance abuse, lots of just numbing with mindless behaviors, I turned to exercise. And I mean, we're talking 3-4 hours a day of high intensity exercise in my younger 20s. And I don't even know how I had the time, but I had the time to spend 2 hours at the gym in the morning and 2 hours again later in the day. as a full-time fitness instructor, I was at the gym a lot, and I still found a way to squeeze in that much for myself. And I look back now, and physical fitness is a high value for me, and I move my body in some way or another every day. And every once in a while I do go to 1 or 2 classes, but it's coming from a place of spontaneity, coming from a place of, oh, I get to gift this to myself today, whereas before it was like, I must perform at this level. I pushed myself so hard because I felt like it was going to get me something or get me somewhere. And I think the way that we treat our body is a big reflection about how we feel about ourselves overall. So now I'm like, wow, I love going to the gym, but if I'm not having, as a female, if I'm on, like, moving into my cycle and moving into that first week of my cycle, my energy is not there. And hormonally, my energy is not there, and honoring that, saying it is okay to move your body less today, or it is okay to rest, and that feels like freedom.
Yes, like tapping into the flow of your body and listening to your body. Totally, I resonate with that same sort of story of approaching physical fitness from a place of almost like shame, where it's like or maybe not shame, but like a place where it's like very deep. Like, if I don't do this, then bad things, like it's like that kind of negative loop in the mind. And yeah, like coming into a new way of flow with physically the feminine cycle too, of just knowing, okay, this is when, during this time in the month, I know that I need to take things slower, or I have that extra energy in this phase of my cycle. So I'm going to go to that HIIT class, or, challenge myself a little bit more in the gym today. And so finding that does give you power. And I think it's those little moments of how can we take our younger selves, like the like stress or things that we inflicted or, internalized externally, the messages, and how can we like soften into that, find peace with that, find joy and pleasure in that too, and just own a little bit more of our power. I think that's a big message for me too, that I'm kind of experiencing right now in my life. And as I continue on into this kind of later 20s, is just how can I reclaim my power? There's been so much of my, younger self that was giving so much and let like too much, through so many different ways. But just being a little bit more like closed off with my energy and protective of my energy and finding power in that energy. And it is that like self-acceptance of like, you are worthy to hold on to that. You don't have to give it away.
100%. Or it's the notion that you have to overgive and overextend to be accepted by others.
Yes.
And I find my new definition in relationship, friendship, intimate partnership, family is someone who's willing to uphold your boundaries and standards are the right people that are meant to be in your life. Like, setting boundaries and standards and withholding them for yourself and allowing others to meet you there is one of the biggest acts of self-love. And a lot of that is coupled with forgiveness for myself, forgiveness to my past self for, I was thinking, or older version of me. I think coming up in this new chapter and this new trip around the sun, it's looking back at all the old versions of myself and loving each version, because at the bottom of each version of me, I was doing the best that I can or that I could at that time. And so it's like witnessing her and loving her and coupling that with gratitude for where I'm at today. It's been a really beautiful journey.
I'm reading Radical Acceptance right now by Dr. Tara Branch. And she has a part in the book where she talks about like how to get through that struggle of like, who was this, like loving your younger self. And even like how those stories that those younger selves hold on to still come up in our present day. And her message to like accept and love and go through that in a positive, healing way is to share or to say out loud, it's not my fault, or it wasn't my fault, and to like give yourself that permission to of like, yeah, you as like this, us now 27, but whatever age you are, looking back at those younger versions of yourself and just like holding so much love and compassion and saying like, you didn't know any better, like
Mhm.
you were doing the best that you could, and that's okay, and just allowing yourself to not expect that perfection, from these younger versions, like these life lessons that we all go through in whatever form they show up in your life, I feel like really, I don't know, just kind of shape us into the people that we are meant to be. And on a soul level, like I think we're meant to go through those experiences. So just giving ourselves that acceptance and love and trusting that those experiences happen for a reason, for a positive reason. An affirmation I'm really working with right now is everything is happening for me, not to me.
Mm.
And just allowing that vision and like experience to be positive, even if the feelings that I'm going through are what we deem in society as negative.
Ooh, so powerful. And I think that brings me to something that we have different takes on. So this will be so good for
Mm.
our listeners, not takes on different experiences for our earlier 20s. So
Mm.
I'm gathering that I find that you either find love or you find a toxic relationship and then you learn about love. You're learning either way, but it's either
Yeah.
through pursuing a partner
Mm.
into marriage,
Mhm.
which is the path that you've recently taken, which I'm so happy, and it's such a beautiful thing to like watch and be a part of.
Thank
And
you.
then I look back at my early 20s and
Mhm.
I pursued relationship, and that relationship was a deep reflection of where I was at in my own journey with
Mhm.
self-acceptance, boundaries, and standards. And the most powerful thing that I've along the lines of self-acceptance is learning, and not learning, but remembering. It's always a
Mm.
remembering to be at cause in your life. So for every experience that you have had, you either get to be at cause, you're either a part of the problem or the solution, or you're a victim to your external circumstances. And I see this with so many women, so many younger women who maybe get into, we'll just use the example of relationship, we'll say quote unquote toxic relationship.
Mm.
I think there's a lot to unpack there depending on the
Totally.
person, but we'll label it toxic. And then when you leave that relationship, it is not uncommon could happen on either side, but for the person to say, my ex, my abuser, that
Mm.
they were so toxic. And at the end of the day, you are consenting. You are consenting every moment of your life.
Mm.
You are consenting to every experience that you have, and that's such a hard, sometimes challenging perspective to take on. And it's one of the most powerful perspectives you can take on, because if you're
Mhm.
consenting, that means you have the power to fix it or change it. And so part of my healing journey, looking on my 26th year going into my
Mm.
27th year, is taking radical ownership over my participation in that relationship that I had. That as much as I felt like
Mm.
there were things that were not okay looking back, and there's parts of me that want to, love my younger self. There were times where I hated my younger self and I said, "What were you thinking?
Of
Like,
course,
this
yeah.
was so obvious. How could you not notice
Mm.
these things?" And I stayed the entire time. I was a participant in that
Mm.
relationship with that person. I send them loving kindness. I send them healing. I want them to be okay. I forgive them. That is such a powerful thing. But in order to take that perspective, you have to be a cause. You have to own, like fully own 100% that you decided every day to be it, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a career, whether it's we see abusive relationships between boss and
Oh,
coworker, or
totally.
boss and employee all the time. So it could be career, it could be family. And that's I'm coming into this next chapter with just how can I stay at cause? How can I keep my power in that way to know that I have control over every situation?
Yes, we have choice.
Yeah.
I recently was in LA and I went to a yoga class. I think I was telling you about this. And the yoga teacher, this is my first time going to LA. So it was a very like stereotypical Valley girl like voice that I was hearing in the class as the instructor. And she had said to someone else like in the class, like, if you are not using a block, putting your hand down, that is a choice. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, that was so passive aggressive. But then this message and like her voice specifically has been like sitting in my head. And it comes up so much for me recently because, and it feels like there was a message there that I needed to hear, because so much of what we do in life is a choice.
100%.
And we do have that option. We don't have to struggle, whether it's putting your hand down on a block when you're opening up into a revolved whatever. But
it's true.
It's so,
no, it's easy to accept the good experiences that we have in our lives. We want to take ownership over that. It's really easy to say, yeah, we worked hard for that. Yeah, we did what we needed to make that accomplishment. Or yeah, we deserve that. We say that all the time. And it is a much more challenging practice to say that there's a book called Existential Kink, and I can't think of the author right now, but it talks about finding pleasure in the pain. It talks about even if you find yourself in a challenging situation, whether it is in love, it is in career, it is in family, it is in your physical health, there is a part of you that wants or finds enjoyment out of that struggle.
Yes.
And it's almost like that play of like owning your shadow side. There's something that exists within you that is attracting this experience. And if you're perceiving it as a bad experience, there's still some ownership there. That's such a hard thing to reflect on.
And I think there's also that like choice. Like I think I see so often where it's like we fall into the routines of mundane life. And that is still a choice, like if you are seeking, or if you're in a very routine, let's say, way of life, which I will just caveat and say routine is so healthy for the body. Like please stay in some sort of routine. Like you need grounding. We all need grounding.
Yeah.
And like if you're going through that and you're feeling like my life is so boring, I don't have anything fun going on, it's like, well, let's just take a step back and analyze. Are you watching TV every time you're eating? Are you, watching, I don't know, like scrolling on your phone, distracting, like tapping into those things that don't make you feel alive, but you're choosing them, And I think that kind of message of like, that's a choice. Like I hear her voice in my head, but it is a choice, and it's hard to accept that we are making choices all the time. And yes, making choices that maybe aren't in alignment with how we want. And it's so easy to look externally and to blame and to say, oh, well, that was because of this, or that's because of this, or I don't have time, I don't have this. And I think as we go into this next season, and if you're on similar journeys listening to this podcast, wherever you are, whatever age you're at, to just remember that we have this option and autonomy over our lives and ability to truly take actions towards the desired reality that we want to live, regardless of where our starting line is at.
Ooh, let's talk about manifestation. That's like a buzzword, and it almost has lost its power in a way, because what we're talking about in regards to choice is perspective and mindset. And what you actually have control over in your life are two things. You have control over your mind and you have control over your actions. But those two together are the most powerful two things to combine, right? And then you talk about, I'd say but in our generation, I'd love to know, like, manifestation is a buzzword. It gets thrown around a lot.
It's trendy.
It's the new age, right? And where I think it kind of gets caught up is manifestation is so much more than a mindset. So you have to know where you're going, and then you have to back up that desire, that goal with action, with evidence-based action to train, to show your subconscious mind, you have different parts of your brain. Your subconscious is your goal getter. Your conscious is your goal setter. So we consciously set the goal, but the subconscious part of our body is what predicts our behavior, our attitudes, our beliefs, and just tapping into that through honoring that you have choice, and then also witnessing your demons and your shadows.
Yeah.
That work is so important. It doesn't matter what age you're at. We all go through things, and it's honoring the things that we've gone through. One of my mentors, there's so many authors and mentors out here that speak to this, but my mentor, Dr. Matt James, talks about quantum physics and how there's 2 ways to change your present state. And you either change the past, you either change your perception of the past, which goes into kind of what you were saying about accepting old versions of yourself, rewriting the story. It's like, at that time, this is what I believe to be true, but now learning what I've learned, or like looking back at what I've learned and what I know now about life, can I look back and choose to believe something different? So changing the way you look at your past, or going out into the future, deciding what you want that future to look like, and then bringing those decisions into now. And so powerful to be in the present. I think going into this next chapter, it's like, how present can I be? Because we are so distracted. Part of the reason we started this podcast is to learn to clear distractions in our home, not just like external distractions, you think like cell phones and technology, but just even like things in our house that are toxic, that distract our bodies from like well-being or from like health and alignment. That it's so important to know where you're going and know what you want, so that you can make decisions right now that match your future. And then you don't have to spend time in anxiety worrying about what's coming, or depression over your past, because you know yourself right now. And I mean, goes into gratitude and other practices that you can have to make sure you stay grounded in the present space. But that is the place where we host the most control.
Totally. And I feel like it is truly so difficult, like you're saying, to stay in the present, and to, like, what does that really mean? Like, let's just dive into that a little bit, because I think we are so used to just having, there's like a visualization that's coming to me right now, but like, you're a lighthouse and your beam is out to sea all the time. And that's how we operate on day-to-day life, is just scanning, searching, whether it's looking at the past or, into the future. Everything is always looking outward. And I think that this being in the present really shines that light and points it inward to you. And to me, that means knowing that difficult emotions are still going to come up. Like, being in the present doesn't mean you're just in pleasure, you're just in joy. All these things are only positive. No, that's not realistic. Life doesn't happen like that. As much as we, wish it would. But humans experience all sorts of emotions, and being in the present means that I have the power to make the choices that support me to move through those feelings, whatever they are, positive or negative, in a positive, in a meaningful way.
Supportive,
yeah. That's like actually driving me towards the vision that I want to be in. It's like similar to the lighthouse visual, but I also think of like airplanes, and I get this, like, it's so funny. I'll sometimes like be walking around thinking about how I want to be, like, where I want to be going, and then I'll see an airplane. So this one is like very resonant to me personally. But if a jet or an airplane or a rocket or anything that's going is like any small degree off from its path, it will end up hundreds of thousands of miles away from where it was meant to be going, just by shifting off of that path a little bit. And so I think too, being in the present, it's just staying on that path, even experiencing whether it's high winds or things that are coming at you, to stay with this metaphor. But it's like, how can we really know and trust that we are going to end up wherever we are meant to go, and not even in the space of like, yes, we can manifest physical items or material things, but like, how are we wanting to feel when we get there? And like, how do we bring in those feelings now to help us keep us on that path.
So powerful. The philosophy I've been operating on right now is your future is a decision. So you basically decide, you get to decide right now what your future gets to be. And then through action, remember, you can't just sit there and visualize, even though it's fun. It's part of the practice. And you can't just sit
you gotta
there.
Visualize them. You gotta do something about it.
You can't just sit there and imagine what it would be like to have the things that you want in your life, whether it be riches or love or family, right? Career, travel, adventure, all the things that vary across humanity. So your future is a decision, and then life is what happens between then and now, or now and then. And that's what it means about being present. It's like deciding that it's inevitable, that it's going to happen, and then getting to enjoy the ride. Right?
Yeah. And like also like two things there that came up. One, the like deciding that it's going to happen. Truly, there's worthiness there. Like there's worthiness work, shadow work right there. Like you have to truly feel in your body that you are worth that dream that you want for yourself. It is a hard thing for people to get behind, but to say, I actually do desire a reality where I don't know, have meaningful conversations with friends on like a random Wednesday night, or I don't know, whatever kind of these smaller milestones look like, or things that you want in your life, knowing, or even if it's something grand like me, I want to build my own house immersed in the mountains, and I have to feel that I'm worthy of that. Like
absolutely.
I have to go through all of that work and say and remove the blockages there. So there's that decision that I just want to tap on first, is like, yes, there's a decision there and work there. that there's a lot. Absolutely. And then I saw this when it kind of coming back to choice along the same path, but I saw a video and it was like it was talking about manifestation and how choice is really that kind of like back to the airplane visual, but puts you back on that path where let's say in the morning, you made a decision that you're looking back, you're reflecting, it might have taken you a little bit off that path, but you have that present awareness to say, what is the next best action that I can take that puts me a little bit more closer to it? 100%. And just knowing that, yeah, once you feel that worthiness, once you identify what your dream is, you're taking that aligned action, we also accept that we will stray off that path and things are not easy. Healing especially is not a straight line, and knowing that you still have that choice in every single moment to say, oh, I just did something that didn't feel in alignment to me. Thank you for that awareness, and here's what I'm going to do now.
Working on your internal compass. I think that's important. I think it's actually super easy to get off path as well, which is why circling back, reflecting, grading yourself. In fact, I think that's my next level of personal growth. Is the message I've been hearing recently is setting the goals, making the lists, setting the priorities for your day, for your week, for your month. And the hardest part of the practice is circling back, whether they most recommend daily, but whatever you can handle. Maybe you start with a weekly reflection of actually like, okay, these were the 3 things I was going to get done today, or these are the 10 projects I had for my week. That is excessive. There's the problem right there, Haley. I'm trying to get 10 projects done in a week. Yes. However, the work for me is actually circling back and holding myself accountable to the things I said I was going to get done. And then if I didn't get them done, is it because I bit off something I couldn't chew? Is it because I was distracted? Like that's the work, right? And it circles back to even more like what I want, what I'm calling in is this. I've had to grapple with career driven. I got my first job when I was 14 and then I started working 2 jobs when I was 16. And I mean, I've had 2 to 3 jobs from that time on to even present day. I have multiple businesses. It's just who I am. I'm driven professionally and I love that part of myself. And as a woman in 2024, I deeply desire to be a mother. I want a family. I want to be a mom. I see it for me. I've already decided. Yes. And I've had to couple with this maybe it's a societal belief of like, a woman can't be successful in her career and also be successful as a mother. Now, I have plenty of examples of where that's not true. And yeah, that still feels like a narrative that I'm fighting against. And so it's the duality, which I think is, we're both so good at holding. We're Libras.
Yeah, the balance, baby.
It's the mindset that you get, that it's like the and versus the either or, feeling like you have to choose one or the other in your life.
Yeah.
And expanding your ability to hold space for everything.
Totally. Yeah. We are in this world, in this country, we are very much, it's this or that. And we live in that black and white thinking. And I think they're the true middle path in that gray space. And that's like where acceptance lives, is knowing that it's not one or the other, it's both. And you can hold both of those feelings at the same time while still, believing them both. Yeah, like, and making, I don't know, I guess, like, allowing things to put you on the right path, I guess, of, like, knowing that things are going to be one way or the another, or I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying with, like, both, like, both things can exist?
It's faith and trust, and I believe what it means to be spiritual in my current model of the world is our ability to hold duality, to hold that it's this or that, and like it's this and that, which also means that you can, quote unquote, have it all. And it's not have it all from a space of feeling like you have to do everything, but that through who you are, like through your identity, you get to expand into abundance, which means getting to appreciate, experience all of life's gifts and all of the fruit of life. Like you don't have to pick and choose.
Right.
It's actually more of, again, a mindset that you get to dive into. And I don't know, maybe that's a conversation around what you feel exists within you at this point in your life around spirituality and your trust and faith. Do you want to touch on that?
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like trust and spirituality, we were just kind of talking about this at the beginning before we started recording. But I think right now where that's showing up for me most is in my business and in my professional career. I've had, I've been out on my own kind of officially. I quit my 9 to 5 in 2020, and there's been a lot of different variations and paths that I've gone through and gone on, lessons I've learned kind of in this past 2 years or so, 3 years kind of technically. But I think just, yeah, really like feeling in my body that I'm on a path for a reason, and I feel called to do certain things or hold this vision for a reason. And knowing that everything is going to happen in the right timing. I think so much of like where I come from, my background is in digital strategy and analytics, and so it's all data and it's all you make your next strategic move based on what happened in the past. And so for me to like have to use that as a baseline structure in my business, of course, but to then expand past that and know that I can also trust that the right opportunity is going to come in the door, and things can truly happen overnight, and things can shift, and all of the work that I'm doing internally, emotionally, on this deeper internal level is affecting all areas of my life and attracting in new energy, attracting in the energy that I want to be bringing in, the projects that I really want to seek out and work with and work on and support people in. They're all coming to me, and I just have to trust that process. So I think for me, the spirituality piece, in terms of trust, is coming up mostly there for me. And I think in general, like I've always been a very spiritual person. I was raised very Catholic, and I'm no longer affiliated with any one religion. I deeply value all religions, and I believe that they're really strong channels to reach divine source. And at the same time, I know that, or I need to still incorporate my own direct relationship with source on a daily basis. And that's something that I think is like I had that and I lost touch with that, and I'm kind of reconnecting with that, and knowing that my time for those practices is so valuable. Like, it's not what we deem in society as productive, right? Like, our productivity is related to work.
Yeah.
And I think spiritual work, energetic work, emotional work is not always included in that, but it's something that I'm noticing that I need to also set time for, especially as I integrate more spirituality into my business as well. You're the same way, with yoga as a big core offering that you have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely a piece of life that more people in our generation are remembering and reconnecting with, for sure.
It's beautiful. I see the transition as well. I look at the division, like we can sit here and I think your reality, even about what's going on in the world, depends on if you're more positive focused or negative focused. And then yet we can all agree that there's sad things going on in around the world, in our own country, multitude of topics there. And I see it as a lack of connection to source, to God, to divine energy. It's the remembering that there's I'm shedding my own personal belief, but if this would be a message for anyone, it's that there is something much larger, much grander at play that has our back, has your back, has my back, has the collective. And when you take the time to tap into that, whatever practice, whatever religious text or spiritual text or way that you tap into that energy, I don't think it's I personally don't believe that you should strip away, like nobody should punish someone for how they get there.
No,
that there's a multitude of ways to connect to that power within you and just within the collective. And in that space lies infinite possibility, lies ultimate safety and protection. And having spirituality at the forefront in my life has made me feel so much more grounded, so much more calm, so much more abundant in times of uncertainty. When things don't seem like they're going to work out, they always do. And that's the message.
Yes, they really always do.
Right.
And everything truly is happening for you, not to you. I really believe that.
Same. So let's go ahead and wrap up. This has been the best.
I know. I think we should just do birthday episodes every time.
Let's talk about our baby, though, before we log off. Let's tell our listeners about our podcast, how it was birthed, what our intentions are, what we will be talking about, what kind of interviews we'll be having, and we'll sign off.
Yes. I'm just pulling up our monthly motivation because I want to make sure we touch on that segment too today, before we log off. Yeah. But yeah, I think. Wait, what did you just say?
I just want to let's tell our listeners about the podcast.
The podcast.
The podcast. We are so excited. It's like a little baby.
Well,
We're birthing our baby.
It is. I think for me, it has always been an interesting mode of media to tap into the energy of voice. And we, of course, throw in some video episodes here and there when we're doing interviews, but really, like, finding power within voice, within our own selves, and then sharing that with each other and just holding space for each other to have experiences that are similar, different, all through our own lenses. And I don't know, it's just something that I always had wanted to do and pursue. And so I think we were at a happy hour at, I think it's Golden Hour.
Yeah.
New little spot. Go check it out in Lohi. It's really cute. It's like pink glam decor, pink and green. It's really cute. But I don't know, something was happening.
Something was happening in both of our lives. It was one of those, just like a girls' night.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, we have so much alignment. For those of you that most of you probably don't know, I run a real estate team in Northern Colorado, and I am also a wellness coach and a yogi. I host wellness retreats internationally and teach a few public classes just for fun. And Haley, on the other hand, complements that industry and those industries so well. What do you do?
Yes, I am a holistic designer and I offer residential and lifestyle design services to clients. And I'm really looking to specialize in new builds specifically that are, in general, my work is to help people be more integrated with the land that they're on, wherever their home is located, and to tap into their home environment to remove these blockages, whether it's energetic, toxin, um, yeah, anything that affects physical, mental, emotional health, and helping you to live a more connected life to your highest self, the person that you want to become. And how can we do that? By mirroring your environment to be the most supportive for you in that.
So powerful. So we highly, highly, highly value health, well-being, balance. I would say health in your environment, also real estate. So
I mean, yeah, I think.
So
Yes.
here we are at this coffee shop having a girls' night and talking about our passions, talking about our future, already feeling so connected with one another, like truly a soul friendship, right?
Totally.
And having a passion project to not only fill our cup, but truly share the information that we're passionate about, the healing and learning that we've gathered in just our short time here on this earth, and package it up in the form of a podcast and share it with all of you so that maybe you can learn, maybe you can be inspired to create more sustainable living through detoxing your home, more sustainable living through detoxing your mind and your body and getting a hold of your emotions, and just a really wholesome and holistic approach to sustainable living.
Yeah. So much of it, what we look at in like home environment and especially in interior design, I think is very much like, again, that like outward driven. Does it look beautiful? Is it functional? Okay, great. All the boxes are checked. But I think so much of what we're holding space for here is, after you buy your property, what do we do to make that now your home? And it just is a little bit of a deeper, I think we both call in connections with clients that are looking for that deeper connection too. And, there's plenty of people who resonate out there with more of just decor or things like that. But I think really what we're trying to do in our own businesses, and where this podcast is like a perfect overlap of our Venn diagram, is just cultivating that conscious connection between ourselves and our services, and calling in those people who feel this also on a deeper level, and who desire to tap into that feeling, and to follow their own intuition, and bring in people who can help them work with that, because it's a confusing thing when you're not familiar,
if anything, I
or
think
disconnected.
I know we share a desire to create a community and to host on a platform that really, I think, inspires. I know that if each episode, if we touch one person, if we get one person to think in a different way, that would make me feel like this is absolutely enough.
Totally.
Just striving for a deeper connection with yourself, with your environment, with each other, making the world a better place, one episode at a time, my friend.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I just love it. I think that, again, voice, and also us interviewing other people and helping uplift other voices here locally is so big. So, yeah, that's kind of how we got started, where we're going. And thank you guys for tuning in. Before we jump off, we want to tap into our monthly motivation. So, Makayla, what is one invigorating conversation that you've had recently?
Ooh, invigorating conversation. You know what? I talked recently with a functional medicine provider around tailoring my workout routine to match my cycle. So that has actually been a really powerful conversation. As you know, for the women listening, and actually really for the men, the women experience a very different 30-day cycle than men do, and our energy levels change with our hormones. And this is broken down to a science to the fact that there are even foods that would support our body best. So I'm not on the foods yet. I'm on the exercise. And so an intentional conversation was just around tailoring the effort that I put in, the intensity that I put in on different days through my cycle to match my energy and actually like respect my body, and just kind of coming to terms with that.
Yeah, I think it is a new way of self-love, like you're saying, of tapping into that, being aware of it, and allowing yourself to really recognize that, women specifically, but everyone, that your body is always speaking to you. And when something is happening, there's a message there, and kind of looking at that and not pushing it away or I don't want to get into the pharmaceutical conversation.
Be a whole nother episode.
I was going to say, I would put us in a different direction.
Tell me, what about you? Intentional conversation you've had recently?
I have been spending a lot of time alone in the past few weeks. I've had a few really intentional conversations, but I honestly would just say, like, I think the most invigorating conversations I've had recently have been with myself, which is also a friendship, also a conversation, but just, reflecting in my journal or things like that. I think for me, it's just been, again, like shining that lighthouse inward and taking time and space and allowing myself to be invigorated by things that I think are interesting, and not waiting for Colin, my husband, or anyone else to agree with me and to just kind of have that piece of like excitement and really like reconnecting with the friendship that I have with myself, that I think has been really not prioritized in my life. So that's kind of been something that I've been prioritizing, and what's been feeling really invigorating for me recently.
Beautiful.
I know I had said that I'm reading Radical Acceptance, which is one book that I have on my list. I was telling Makayla before, but I've been trying to be a little bit more intentional about reading and not taking on too much. But this book, Radical Acceptance, I'm listening just to the audio on Spotify. And it's really, really helpful to give like tools, examples. It's definitely more of a spiritual book. So that one's been really speaking to me and helping me through kind of more of the shadow work side of exiting year 26 and entering into 27. And then one other book that's been really helpful for me too is called Rise, Sister Rise by Rebecca Campbell. And this is kind of like it's all about women empowerment. You can flip to any page. It's has kind of a narrative throughout, but also just kind of mini essays in there. And she's just talks about her spiritual pilgrimages that she's been on, specifically in the UK area, going into Merlin's cave and having a Shakti like full body experience in this cave, like just really inspiring experiences that she's so authentically and vulnerably sharing. And if you are familiar with Rebecca Campbell's work, you might have seen her tarot cards or card decks that she puts out, which are super fun to work with. But anyway, that is a great book that I've been reading, and just overall, like, can't even sum it up. I'm just still taking in all the like experiences and messages that she's sharing, which feel really meaningful to me. What about you?
So good. I set a rule for myself actually last year that I would only open one book and listen to one audio at one time until I finished it. I couldn't buy another one. Just recently, I kind of went back to my old patterns of having a few books open at once just because I'm so eager to learn all the things.
Yeah.
But I just wrapped up a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, and that really went into expanding our horizon and our perspective around playing that life is infinite in nature and nothing is finite, and how we can how if you're plugged into the matrix, that's what I'll say, is it feels like a very finite game, and your happiness, your energy, your desire to achieve expands when you can detach from the finite game, that there's like an ending. Like you think about, you make a mistake and it's over, versus there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. You keep going, right? So really, really lots of good nuggets in there. And then just before, on my way over here to record this podcast, I dusted off a book that I had finished a while ago called Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, which goes so good with some of the things that we discussed in our episode today. But coming into the 27th year, I just felt like it was time to go back to the drawing board, envision, like, what does this next year hold for me? 26 was so powerful in so many ways. And I accomplished like the things that I've done. There's so many things that I've done, but I've also become so much more of a woman that I'm so proud to be today. And so visiting the drawing board again, what does that 27-year-old version of me look like? So that's a reread for me, but it's a great book for anybody that is listening. And last one, Haley.
What is one non-toxic swap that you're working on or that you want to make?
Yeah, non-toxic swap going into the month of October. I think I'm gonna swap out my yoga pants. I spend a lot of time in my yoga pants, and lots of those fabrics are not good for our bodies, and it's hard to accept because I love fashion. I love fashion, and I'm definitely one to sacrifice my body for something that looks good. If you've seen the blisters I've accumulated on my heels over the years from wearing bad heels just because they're cute, totally me. And I know that there's some better fabrics that I can get, especially with those pants being so close to a really sensitive part of the female body. So I'm gonna work on that month of October. What about you?
Love that.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you're like October. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, wait, it's actually September 20th, Haley, when we're recording this. But yeah, I think right now I'm still just focused on clothes. Before it was really the intimates of like, socks, underwear, bras, that sort of thing, and swimsuits even. And I'm still just kind of slowly working my way through my closet, building up basics, things like that, to really have a capsule wardrobe that feels good to me, feels like my personal style, and can help me live a little bit less trendy, if that makes sense, and just buying less and being okay with less, and knowing too that if you buy things that all kind of go with each other, you have literally thousands of outfit possibilities. And I don't know, I saw a video or something recently that was like, you can't buy your way into personal style. Like you kind of, it's just a creative expression. And so I think that it's been good to like eliminate all the things in my closet that are not, or that are toxic, but I'm working through it with a smaller collection of items now, so it's difficult, but it's one that I feel like it's really important to eliminate those toxins. Like you said, it's just so close to our bodies, and I just think that when it comes to all these things, we have never been in a place where like we're all in a test tube with so many things when it comes to toxicity, but clothing especially. We've never mass produced textiles in this way that are all made out of plastic. Like, and we've never sweat in them. We've never spent all of our time in them for forever. Like the human existence has not.
One giant test tube. That's a visual I'll have the rest of the day. Oh, so good.
So the toxic swaps or non-toxic swaps are always like an overwhelming thing for me. So I'm trying to take it slow with the clothes.
Yeah,
but
that's why we're here, friends, just to remind you, we'll share one non-toxic swap at the end of these episodes to really drive home the journey to detoxify, quote unquote, detoxifying your life, which is damn near impossible, but we chip away at it. Isn't something that's meant to be done all at once. It can feel so overwhelming when you dive into the world of health and well-being and toxicity in the home. And so just inspiring you guys to take one actionable step at a time.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Soulful Sustainable Living with Haley and Makayla. We truly feel so grateful that you're here and listen to today's episode. We would love to connect with you further at Soulful Sustainable Living on Instagram. And if you have someone that we should be talking to or you would like to come on our podcast, please reach out to us at info@soulfulsustainableliving.com. We appreciate you. Take care of yourself today. Always sending you love and peace.